This is just AMZN on Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. Looking at the daily here. So yesterday was a bearish gap and go. We talked about that. You can go back and watch that video. Really interesting how we cleared this shaved bottom candle and then somehow bounced. And then we had a really massive gap down again today, making this another bearish gap and go. This one actually sold off. So the sell-off I was looking for yesterday happened. I mean, it happened immediately right out of the gate, and then that was it. But then it came back and hit today. We're right back at the 200 simple moving average again. And I just want to spend a little bit of time looking at the daily because this has really turned into a head and shoulders, the gap down, retest the neckline, and sold off. And so depending how you draw this, if you even just use the 21 exponential, and if I could draw a straight line on this channel ever or occasionally, I mean, there's your neckline. Yeah, like this is head and shoulders, and it's totally played out, at least to get back down to kind of the low from the initial sell-off. But I mean, it has the potential to go lower. And I talked about this before, and I didn't call it the right, I was calling it like an expanding triangle. I think the more technical term is like megaphone pattern, but someone else reminded me of that last week. Anyway, it could still shape up like this. We could totally have more selling to go. That's the potential. We're at a really good place to bounce. We bounced here, not right off of the 200. We actually sold through it, came down into this, and then came back up, pausing a little bit at the 200. So, I mean, it's possible we go down a little bit more, come back up, and we're back at the 200 and make a decision. You know, we could do something like that and then sell off from there. And I mean, that would make sense for this kind of like an S curve sort of thing that we know does happen. So that's another potential. We don't have to just sell off straight down. We could just, you know, retest a bit. We'd also bounce here. If we get a gap up tomorrow, that would be a bullish gap and go potentially. If we clear the high here, after hours, if I can see it, you can see it. After hours, we're basically flat. I did want to look at, I haven't done this in a bit while recording, but if we jump over to the weekly, and I'm going to zoom in, and because we're talking about, you know, just some patterns and all, this is shaping, it's kind of hard to see that way. Let me zoom back out. Okay, so no, I want to keep it like this. There we go. We've got a weekly head and shoulders forming. So this to this, and then to this, and I drew that last peak a little too high. So this is another head and shoulders. It's still forming. It does not have to completely form. It does not have to come back down here. If it does, we're into the 3100s. If we have the kind of double red line through here as a neckline, we could then break down, retest. That may mean touching the 100 on weekly, which is around 2,900, 3,000, somewhere in there. And then if we do the same sort of thing we're doing on the daily, kind of retest that neckline and then sell off, we could even come down to the 200. The 200 is way down here at like probably be at around 2,300, 2,400 by the time all of that could play out. I mean, that's into the end of the year. But while we're talking about head and shoulders pattern, I just want to kind of take a step back and look at this. It's, you know, it's forming on the weekly, and it's already formed on the daily, and just something to be aware of. You know, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for how things could play out. We've been in this channel for a while. I mean, we've been in the upper end for a bit. We could come back down to the lower end of this channel, and that means coming down into 2,900, 3,000 again, which we did over here and bounced. So it doesn't have to go that much lower. I mean, it doesn't have to go below that, but it's not out of the question that we could go right on through the simple moving averages and continue to break down. We'll see if it does. But having two back-to-back bearish gap and goes is really interesting if we do have some more continued selling. So these two candles will be the ones that tell us, okay, these were some warning signs, along with the pattern of the head and shoulders. And I had also talked about kind of on the daily here, we had this kind of double top shape, and then earnings happened, and then we did end up retesting the neckline of that, with this high over here. It was retesting this neckline, and so we didn't get back up and close this open gap. Still, that's still open. So again, just really telling that there's been some more, kind of bearish edge to this, and it's interesting to see things playing out that way. So right now we're below the 21, we're below the 5. We're at a really good place for support. We're really at a good long-term place for buying. Would not be surprised if people are buying. That was what I was saying yesterday. It's like, this is just a place that if people are buying, there's still money coming into the market, and really we just kind of have to wait to see which way things go. And sideways is another option there. We could continue sideways, like we went sideways for a while through here. So that's possible too. So anyway, I know we're midweek, looking at the weekly and where we're at in the daily. So we'll see where this week ends up forming. But if we kind of take a step back, or smaller into the 5-minute, we got our gap down and we immediately ran right back up to 33.6680, which has been a really good price yesterday. I'll zoom back out on this. So yesterday we were into that price and we bounced nicely. And then today we were taking out everybody who bought, really everybody who bought after like this point of the day was trapped this morning with this gap down here, retested into this level that we had bounced from yesterday, and immediately ran down, retested into the 5, ran down, retested into the 5 again, ran down, went sideways. This is really choppy through here. Came back into the 21, rolled down, made a new low. And at this point, it's like, okay, we've been going down for a while. This might be a little bit of exhaustion down here. The volume didn't spike crazy, but pretty soon after this, we were getting into the RSI being oversold again. And we just kind of chopped. We went sideways through here again and then got some rallying going, but nothing as strong as yesterday's rally. And another thing I really did notice about today is we had like 15 minutes of selling, 15 minutes of buying, 20 minutes of selling, 25 minutes of buying, 30 minutes of selling, and then it got choppy. And it was like 10, 5, 10. So it's like, it was just really interesting to see kind of the waves of this. And these are literally waves where you have, selling, buying, selling, buying. This is clear. It's very directional. It's very, I don't know if it's intentional, if it's, just people doing that. Obviously it's people doing that, but I don't know if there's anything else going on where it's kind of forcing these candles to be this way. But I just thought it was really interesting. We did this not for just a couple patterns or a couple switches. We did it 5 times. And technically you could say this a 6th time. This was only 10 minutes. But normally we're used to seeing, a couple candles at a time, and we have some, single candles in here that pop up and change direction, and it's a little bit of rest. And normally it, like we were talking about this yesterday, we had bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish all in a row. We had that same kind of thing happen today. We just had a much more bearish edge to it. So the bearish candles moved much more quickly down. The bullish candles were more resting, and they came in waves. So these waves each pushed up into the 5, and then kind of into the 5 here. And after that, it really needed to come back up into the 21, which it did. And this was retesting this low and then sold off again. So these same waves you can look for in the options, and you can get a feel for, where to, not put yourself out there, but where to wait for the time to be right, some sort of a direction change. So you can see in the 3,300 put, which it's getting very close to, and it actually got in the money at a couple points during the day. We got below 3,300. So this is much more expensive today, obviously, than yesterday, but you can see the same waves happening. So 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 bullish, 15 bearish, 20 bullish, 25 bearish. This only was 25 bullish here. So this last candle, this was a bearish candle here on the 5-minute, a bearish candle here on the put, even though we went down here. And then it turned into being a bullish candle on the call. So a little bit of not confluence, something a little bit opposite there. And those are always intrigue me, where you have, we're moving in the direction. So we're moving down. The put should be going up. The put's not going up, or at least doesn't make a bullish candle, doesn't make a positive candle. It makes a red candle. And you had the opposite thing happen on the call. So just something interesting. The candle before that was kind of flat. So this is the point. So these two candles here on the call were kind of the signals to say, okay, things are slowing down a little bit. You know, it wasn't a low, but it did put in a really good base at this $4 price. And really throughout the rest of the day, you could have just scalped, buy it for, sell it higher, and higher was questionable. It did get up to 5 over here, but you could use that to go to another option and look for better pricing. You know, if you know that, okay, we've got a good base going there. Let me see if I can see what's happening with another option. Are we getting a good base? So here's that same time frame. Are we getting a good base here? Not really. It comes down a little bit more and then comes down a little bit more, but you can still see, okay, we've got a, you know, the low here to the low here is not as significant as this low to this low and this low to this low. It's slowing down on the bearish side. It's slowing down as it's losing value. And that's where you can look for, okay, let me wait for it to not just continue losing value, but let me see if it'll make a higher low. And then a higher low is a good place to kind of get in. Like after this hammer, this was about $1 range. You could be buying midway into this hammer. So that's buying around $8 and see if you can get an entry at 8. And it didn't quite make it here. So buying at 8, just that off the cuff, you know, hey, that's a good plan. Let's try that. You would have had to buy a little bit higher, but looking for that and looking for the RSI signal to be oversold. I'm sorry, to be overbought. No, I said it right. To be oversold and looking for that place. You know, it's rested enough or it's put in enough of a low here that if it comes down and makes another low, at least on the RSI, that might be a good place to get in. And it did the same RSI on the stock, and then got to the point that it was at the overbought on the put. And you know, again, we can look at this, and I'm talking today about head and shoulders, and we've got another one going on here on the put. I'm trying to get the annotate tool. There we go. So this is another kind of head and shoulders like that. And it's getting into, so this is your signal like, okay, we're kind of at the same level of this shoulder and this shoulder. We've made a lower high than this head right here. So let me look to short it here, which means buying. Let me look to short the put, which means buying a call here. You kind of have some of that same shape, but it's not as easy to see on the call. You can kind of see it. Oops, drew that a little too quick. You can kind of see it here, but that it doesn't come back up and get to the same neckline. It's let me see if I can zoom back out in this. If we look at it like that, let me just zoom in on the day, and I got to clear the annotate. Clear all. So it's a little easier to see with this kind of stretched out. So the 21 is our neckline. Okay, so our neckline is really steep like that. When that's happening, it's a hard thing to see it. It's a hard thing to really draw a clean line, if I could draw a line. And you want, you know, when we're making these lower highs, you want to wait for it to get back above that typically, unless you're seeing a pattern like this, that, okay, we put in a higher low, this is a good place to buy the low and have a stop, you know, really close by. If you're wrong, you're going to be wrong quick, that kind of thing. But if you're seeing that same pattern happening here, so here it is happening on, I drew this already, on the put, it's much easier to see, oh, okay, here is, you know, our neckline is still slanted like this, but you can see we've got similar shoulders here and here and a head there. So you can see the pattern work out. And I always want to be looking for that kind of confluence, looking for the patterns to show up on other options, and then go into an option that it's like, okay, where could I buy here? So the 3,400 call, if you just bought at 8, you would have been missed. This order would have skipped you if you were trying to buy midway through this candle. And I'm just approximating it at 8. I think the exact middle of that candle would have been 805. So still would have missed. So if we go a little bit further away to get, you know, this risk a little bit better, yeah, the 3,400 or the 3,425 just had so little volume. And then we were looking at the 3,450 already. So I guess I would look another week out maybe 3,500. Let's see what's going on there. Yeah, this is all still chop. So 3,450. Oh, time's a little better. It's still just choppy. So I think the best one would have been the 3,400 this week. And that would have been buying at one of these levels here on this kind of pullback. And you could have gotten 3 hours in that. You just couldn't get in it at 8. It would have been a little bit higher. So maybe 850. And your stop at 750. And that still would have been a stop below this low. So buying at 850, target of 1150 for 3 hours on a Tuesday, and that would have worked. That would have gotten back up here to this peak, this pivot with the high volume, really high volume on this. 734 contracts, 966 contracts. So a lot of volume right through here. What's going on right then? It's just always interesting to look at the high volume. And it's not always good to go with that high volume because it could have been selling high volume. I mean, obviously there's buying and selling in each candle, but yeah, so right through here, this is where we were getting right into the 21. So this was a good place to see some resistance here. So this, I mean, this could have been some part of a spread, credit spread or debit spread or something. And oh, speaking of spreads, so if you follow the link I've got in the description, there is somebody from, when you follow the link, it takes you to a company that I've been a part of for a long time. And they're doing someone named Tony is doing some training next week. So it's next week, Monday through Friday. It'll be really good. I'm planning to jump into it and we'll see what we can learn about spreads and selling options, not just buying options, which is primarily what I talk about. But anyway, just made me think of that with spreads because I don't know exactly the terminology that I'm saying for a credit spread or debit spread, what would be going on with this higher volume here. But obviously, if somebody's buying this, it didn't work. It didn't continue higher. So that's why I'm wondering if somebody was selling this right into the 21, looking for it to go lower, but you don't have that same kind of volume later in the day to get out of it if it was selling the same day. But it lost premium from here. It was a really good place to sell. Like this, I was talking about this yesterday. The 21 here and the 33.66.80 price was a really good place to be buying yesterday. And so similarly with this kind of gap down, if you've run into the 5 a couple times, look for a run up into the 21, that's a good place to go short. And it worked for 25 minutes, 30 minutes. Let's see, 30 minutes, you know, it sold off. So this was probably one of the best entries here. Well, not this expensive. The range on these was not that bad for how pricey it is, but I would have gone out to probably, let's see, 32.50. Where's this at? That's still kind of more expensive than I would want to do. 32. This is getting a little better. I don't like that it dipped right below 8 or right below 9. I would have liked this, not this one, but probably this candle or this candle, buying in the middle, like 950 by 850, and then letting that run up to the previous high. So instead of going instead of going 950 to 1250, let it run a little bit, just because, I mean, if you want to get out at 1250, you're out a little bit below this low, but if it's going to sell off from here, it needs a little bit of room to sell off. Just like yesterday, we bought from here. It needed a little bit of room. At least this first run up went past the earlier high of the day here and did actually take out the high of the day at that point. This was a new high of the day. So I'd expect that in the opposite direction, I would expect us to push back down a little bit more. And the options were acting really strange through here. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but the options pricing was really out of whack. Like there was so much volatility that even though we were this much lower, the calls were higher down here than they were like over here. And it was really bizarre to see that. This one, not so much. Let me go back to next week. I think it was next week I was looking at. There was something. Wasn't that one? Is it this one? Yeah, so I'm just comparing. So over here, this price was the low of the day on this call, on the 3,500 call. Even though we went lower over here, we were still higher here than we were over here. It was just really bizarre to see that. And we stayed range bound between like 650 and like 850. Later in the day, it only got back up to like 825. So we really stayed range bound from 650 or basically 675 to 825 the whole day. Like all day long, you could have been buying and selling at those prices on this call option. Even when we made this lower low right here, a new low in the day, the option did not sell off. And that was telling me, okay, there's more volatility. The market makers aren't giving up that premium so quickly because they're anticipating some sort of reversal. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. And we just didn't get the sell off, but we got this continued move up. But yesterday I saw some things going on with the options through here. And then today, again, saw some things going on with the options through here. And yeah, it was just really bizarre to see the options, seeing a call option up, even though we were much lower. So this was the following week. So not this Friday, but next Friday. And one of the things you don't deal with as much as this Friday's expiration is that kind of time decay. So this Friday, it didn't happen. This was a lower low this Friday. And because of the time and it's just, the time is just decaying that much more quickly. The premium's getting sucked out quicker when it moves away from the strike, when we're out of the money, especially. But for next week, it was much more stable. And so looking at next week's options, you got to find the ones that have enough volume, that are moving somewhat similarly to the 5-minute. And there's some good setups on those. So yeah, some interesting things going on. We'll see if we can get another rally back up into 33.6680 and then a bigger S curve here, or at least, come back up into this price and make a decision if we're going to, get back into some chop through here or what we're going to do. So let's take a look at the 5-minute real quick. Actually, let's go look at the hourly. So I meant to do that before and see if we've got another head and shoulders forming. So you can see the one on the daily. It's pretty clear here. We did do a multiple retests on it. So what I'm seeing now, and this is just kind of picks up the conversation from earlier. So we have head and shoulders like this, and then kind of this head and shoulders. I didn't draw it right. There's like, well, anyway, we've got a neckline here for the big one. We've got a neckline here for the littler one. It's just, yeah, like I said, it's just really interesting seeing some of these forming and having that fractalization, just the fractal, like things happening in the bigger time frame can happen in the smaller time frames. There you go. Now you can see this is the 30-minute now. You can see the patterns a little clearer here. So this is one of the reasons I like going down to a 1-minute or a 3-minute during the day, because you start to see some of these things at different time frames. You get some of my triangles. I haven't looked at this chart in a while. So I'd moved this triangle just over to the right to see if it lined up, and it lined up through here a bit and through here. So keeping these same angles that I had drawn on the bigger time frame, that ended up here's, let me do this. So this triangle works along those 3 peaks and like these 3 peaks, and then didn't really work as this got smaller. And then that same angle worked really well here and here. So it worked really well on the smaller area here, where it didn't work here, and wasn't as clean on the bigger area, way out here, until you got in really small. So it was almost like, okay, pick this up and put it over here, and then it worked again. And then that was actually helping kind of show we've got that same consolidation. It's almost like it took a break. You know, like what could have happened that we took a break from this amount of time to this amount of time, you know, for like 3 months. What, you know, what happened? It just shifted to the right and continued with that same angle. And then that helped to kind of make this a much bigger, you know, bigger than expected move because we had this kind of consolidation, pushed it up. The consolidation here, I think I checked that angle and it's similar. These lows are similar angle to this. But anyway, we're spending a lot of time charting. So, which I don't mind, but you can obviously stop the video if you want. Anyway, this is a lot of looking at different things, weekly, daily, hourly. We're down at the 78-minute right now. Let's look at the 15 and see if there's anything else going on there. So if we continue this conversation on how things can be fractal, I'm kind of seeing like an odd double top here. And this would at least need to retest to that. Could definitely still push back up here tomorrow and then have another kind of sell off. This was definitely some consolidation here, making higher lows and then broke out and then ran back up into that previous kind of neckline. And this turned into like a little channel through here. That sold off, retested kind of midway, sold off again. But we've definitely got some selling going on in here. We could push back above this a little bit, make people think that we're going bullish again like we did yesterday, and then have a harder drop. And I think the 100 somewhere in there too. Where's the 100 at? So the 100 is at 30, it's at 3,400 right now. So back over here. So yeah, if we got back up to the 100, that would be around 3,400 up here. So that would be the bottom edge of kind of that channel that I just drew in there. So anyway, I know I'm all over the place with this video, but there's just a lot of stuff that could play out. There's a lot of patterns that are good to kind of recap and kind of see how everything's moving around. We could still have, this is starting to look like a bit of a cup pattern. So we could have, you know, this play out where we have that handle come in and that would be like a big flag and then it breaks out. The cup and handle is a bullish pattern. So there's a lot of things that are really shaping up right now and we just really have to wait, but look for these kind of waves, bear, bull, bear, chop, you know, look for those kinds of things to come in and it'll help you understand what direction things are moving in when, you know, it's just really volatile. And then play off of, it looks like the moving averages and the 33.66.80 price are kind of the big influences right now. So look for them to hold. If it doesn't hold, possibly flip. Like this was, I was talking about yesterday, I should have flipped at this point when it was holding that level and bounced instead of looking for that continuation lower. Got the continuation lower today. If I had shorted higher, I would have been selling at the close and that would have been, you know, amazing to have sold up here. Instead I was selling over here and got some back today. So anyway, hope this helps. This is Justin AMZN. Thanks.